Okay, unlike Paolo, I haven't got a... I'll stand here and try to do free form behind a microphone. So first of all, many of you will hopefully have got a positive view. I won't even ask for a comment on the NBN. It's a fantastic company to work for, the most scary role that I think anyone could ever ask for, but most exciting, because we have a plan that by 2020 to have connected 8 million homes across Australia. No one's ever done it anywhere in the world. And as many of you who would be politically aware, we started doing fibre to everyone, and then at the drop of a hat, everyone decided with a new government, let's do 5 or 6 technologies. And so that challenge of turning on a dime required an innovative approach that I think that any company would welcome, but go in hindsight, what were we doing, right? So actually for us, robotics and thinking about processes and how does technology enable the sort of challenge that you look back and go was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And for those of you who haven't got the NBN yet, it's worth the wait. So I think my real focus here is to talk about process. There's a lot of hype around robotics and AI, but if you don't understand how things happen in your organisation and how you get complexity in the middle of noise, then you're not going to achieve anything. And so for us, there were 2 real requirements. The first was the need to innovate and automate. And I think what I'd say is when you don't, I know it sounds weird to think you work for the NBN and you say you don't have much money, but when you have a very tight focus and there is a lot of IT investment required just to stand up core infrastructure, and then you say, hey, we need to do this smarter, it's like you have to carve out and protect a certain amount of money and then go, right, we haven't got much, what are we going to do with this? And it drives innovation. And the second was that we found, even though for my division, HFC, which by the way sounds really technical, but HFC is the cable TV, what Foxtel and American companies have been using for 20 years now to run pay TV. So it's a really high-powered network for broadband, but it's relatively new and therefore lots of challenges ahead. So for us, it's about let's get rid of the waste and use agile methodology. And I'll keep going on about agile because I know people see that as just some project way to do things, but agile and process is about bringing people on the journey with you. And the people I'm talking about are not just the frontline people who are doing the jobs. I'm talking about the accountants in the company who really, really don't want to spend any more money or just want you to get a return in the first 2 weeks, or the IT teams who are scared as anything about this new technology. And so working through with them is important. So for us, we had aggressive timelines. And I think it's important that you don't see this as either the future or that takes a long time. We spent 3 months only. We gave ourselves 3 months to look and design the strategy. How do we get process maps? How do we understand the activity-based costing? How do we give ourselves a roadmap and an IT architecture for the future? Then we did a 12-week pilot. And I'll talk about each of these phases, but this is about speed to market. So for us, we are multiplying our customer base by 8 times this year. So in my entire career, if only I'd had that challenge, it would have been pretty exciting. I'm sure Foxtel would love that challenge right now, instead of going the other way, probably. So, you know, you've got to stay relevant to the market and you've got to move faster. So traditional IT approaches are just not going to no longer work. And then finally, we've done the launch, and I have to say that we were absolutely deliberate, saying we need parallel deployment. We need to make sure that there are concurrent streams of activity so that in the end, every 3 weeks or so, we're rolling a new robot. And the other thing I'd say is we wanted to break paradigms. So when we started, we had no real idea what we were doing. And what we said was, everyone told us, you get 1 robot, you buy 1 license, you bring in 1 robot, and you get a process. And I can tell you now that in the pilot alone, and with the incredible partnership we had with Infosys, it was actually, we now will have 22 robots doing nearly 80 processes, because we know that it just, because the dream one robot equals a person. And we're like, well, one person doesn't do one job all day. We have to break the paradigms from the very beginning. So we're pretty excited. So actually, I hadn't met Paolo before this presentation, but I've got to say that it's almost like, think about whatever he said, and I'm just going down one deeper to show you how we did it rather than what we did. So the first thing I would say over and over is be structured and strategic. So the first is we're very much a company of BPE, Business Process Excellence, and we wanted to understand our cost, the value, and the waste. And we hadn't realised, even in a brand new company, how much waste we'd put in. And so we went into FMEA, Failure Mode Effects Analysis. And that's where you overlay and you deep dive, and I'll show you some tools now to actually give yourself a horror story of how much waste is in your business. Have a look at how each step goes through, and then basically look to figure out which ones will be great for just fixing, which ones will be great for RPA, and which ones just get rid of altogether. And then basically overlay activity-based costing. We couldn't really find many people who'd done the ABC on top of the process. They went, either we know our processes or we're really excited about technology, but put the three together. So this map is deliberately to show you how bad life can get in any business. And that's actually, any business. What we said was, so level 1 is activate a customer. Level 2 is take the order, send it out to technicians, turn it on. Level 3 is you go down and you go down. And we took down to level 4 every process. And we didn't do it and put it on the shelf to feel really good about it. We took it and then we said, how do we use this to inform? And what we found was, first of all, the oh my God experience, where we looked and went, how do we influence? Because there are just too many processes, too many dependencies, too many people think they've got the fingers in our pie. And so the first thing we identified in the orange was, what can we own, what can we influence, what can we direct, and that's what we carved off to say, let's fix. Because unless you focus on what you can manage, you will never change anything. And that was a big learning for us at first, because there are a lot of people in the company who wanted to get involved, and I'll be politically correct and say influence us instead of, get in the way, and we went, nope, go away, we're just doing it our area. And again, I know that sounds a rude thing to say, but keep others away while you try and get some direction. So value stream mapping. Absolutely important for us is that we looked at our end-to-end process map. So Michelle talked about customer experience. That's critical. If you don't start with a CX approach, in other words, how do you influence at the end and highlight the failure points that will get you there, you end up with a wonderful piece of shiny technology with a process that doesn't improve anything. And so, as I said before, be very clear for us around the candidates for RPA, the candidates for automation, the candidates for lean and process, and then the other candidates would just throw them away. We had so much waste so quickly. And that's because as a company, NBN, we brought in lots of people from different companies, and we said you've got 9 months to stand up HFC. And everyone just brought what they knew from their own big telcos, their own big experiences, and they brought that noise and waste from their own experiences. So BPE methodology is all about that circular approach, process mapping, and a lot of fishbones. I really hate fishbones now, but they are fantastic because fishbones are not there for the team that are doing the work. Fishbones are in a critical role for change management because going out to the rest of the company and selling something new and showing them there's a problem where they don't want to address it, honestly, these tools are pretty important to us. The other thing that I would say is using cross-functional teams to map made the difference for us. So we had IT, we had finance, we had strategy, we had every team, and we didn't want, and it sounds awful, we didn't want managers in these processes. We actually had the people who did the work, and they could tell us that we'd been smoking something when we first designed the processes, because actually what we came up with is a lot better. So this is my favourite picture, and I know I'm weird, but what was incredible here was this value lean picture that we took a process. And that process for us was we have technicians in the field, and they go out and they finish an installation for a customer. And there might be a problem, the customer's wires have been cut, or we've gone out to people's homes, they thought they had live Foxtel, but meantime they'd cut it off 3 months ago, concreted up the cement, and actually even pulled the wire through and left it helpful for us at the end of the driveway, right? And yet it should have been a quick installation. So all of those things that go wrong, we would then send on the iPad, they'd send a tool in. And remember, we're a wholesaler. And actually, I had to remind ourselves we're a wholesaler a lot. So we can't talk to the end user. That customer is owned by one RS or a telco. And so getting not just our systems to talk to each other, but getting our portals updated and our RSP systems to talk to each other was a nightmare. And so this, when we mapped it out and did that value stream mapping, we showed that over 50% of the work that our teams were doing just for that was wasted. And so showing it visually, which is, if you were a customer, would you pay for the work that person was doing? And when we looked at it, we went, well, the only things that we would pay for is they capture the information, they notify the telco that something's gone wrong, and then they update the order because it's fixed. No one's prepared to pay for anything else. And if you put your problem statement into would I pay for this or not, you have a very different view on where you want to focus. And so for this held order update, we got rid of over half, and we could quantify it through the activity-based costing. We got rid of half of our waste. And again, Pareto, again, we had a parking lot, and we're very deliberate on our parking lots. Everywhere around visual management, we have what are the things we'd love to get to, but they're on a parking lot. And I think, again, one of the learnings was that we have currently about 73 things in the queue for what we need to put robotics onto and automation. And we've said, you know, we just can't get there, but we know they're strategically important, but actually let's just focus on the top things. And if I show you why I say that, activity-based costing, we basically started with, and I've played around with some of the information, given I am in a public thing, but we had one problem in one department. It's about 163 people. We had some team leaders. So it was $8 million worth of cost. And we knew we do over 200,000 of this particular order. And all we did was stack rank them to say there's $4 million worth of opportunity. There's another $2 million at the bottom. Now, the accountants and some of the other people were like, no, you've got 9 tasks, let's just knock them off. And we're like, no, we're going to start at the top and we're going to go down. And you can see in some of them, number 2 is only $6.81 an item, whereas the one above it was $433. So again, it was about high value, high volume. So if you overlay your volume and your costs, you get a very different view of where you want to start in terms of your opportunity. And so for us, it was about the total dollars, not the effort required. And that became important because as we used one robot for 7, 8, 9 different processes, we allowed ourselves that ability to toggle on and off and to change where we focused. Again, that analysis phase, I'm going on and on about the analysis phase, but if you don't understand where your opportunities are in the first place, it's pretty hard. So what our opportunity here is that our work arrival patterns are just the same as most companies. From 8 in the morning to 8 at night, we got really busy. And in fact, in telco land, they're very narrow, right? They don't even get the telcos, they don't really like to take orders on a Saturday and Sunday. And so what would happen is they'd get a few, and then they bulk upload them on a Monday morning, and we're the opposite to banking on a Friday. Monday mornings are crazy. So what we looked at this and said is, well, sorry, we're paying for these robots. We need to get 24/7 use out of them. So let's just, when at 8 o'clock at night, let's do the non-value updates. And so that red line was so stable. And so again, we got full utilisation and maximum benefits from just looking and visualising how do we use things. So then we do this proof of concept. And I think, again, overlay business as usual. What we found is that things were constantly changing in the business, and we had to make sure that the robotics team were off to the side and the processes were being updated. Our IT team are constantly releasing monthly updates, and every time they did, it mucked up something. And so it didn't mean to, but it's just what happens when you do IT releases. How do you make sure that your robots and your automation can keep up with that? And then how do you do that with people in the change management? But our whole focus is to exceed and break the system, and that's all we were there. So the key learnings is that one robot should get you anywhere between 10 and 30 FTE. And so our whole focus was, how do we maximize the benefits we're getting? How do we increase the speed of which we deliver each robot? Because as I said, when we started, people were saying, well, it should take you 3, maybe 5 months to bring one in. And of course, once we've got our robots, then, as Paolo was talking about, then you bring in all of the other AI. But we weren't in a position to link all of those other technologies until we got our base case in order. And the final thing was to demonstrate that those commercials were robust. So in terms of a launch, I'd say that we were very modular. So we employed in the first 4 months 12 robots, and we had 26 processes covered. And then basically we focused on data and analytics. And if there's something that you really need to do is to have internal, amazing analytics BI teams. You can't, people are focusing, I think, a lot when I talk to them about the technology or the vendor or the automation, rather than forget all that. It's sort of like, to me, a wedding day versus the honeymoon, or the day after you wake up and go, God, I'm married, right? Forget the wedding day and all the fancy white dresses. It's the next day you wake up and you say, wow, am I getting my money? What do I need to tweak? Because one of the things we found was that watching what we'd seen with the traditional IT, they did an order and it went through the system when we'd have a report that dropped out at the end that said we had this many fallouts or this much fault. With our robot, every step of the way, we could see where the faults were, and we were using the robots every day, every hour, informing our own IT team what they needed to fix before they even knew something was broken. So really, really focus on the analytics, and then the whole reuse of the robot to actually get 24/7 utilisation. So really, in terms of change management, the thing that worried me the most about change is that people keep focusing change on comms. Let's tell people what we're doing. Let's make them feel really happy and not worried, because there are a lot of people freaked out that they're going to lose their jobs, that suddenly we're going to have iRobot or whatever else, Terminator you can think of, and that, or that it's all going to change. So the one thing is that focus on the stakeholders early and bring them in, and make sure it's not a communications exercise. We use the mapping and that value stream analysis to address the business, the silo, and the complexities. And as I said before, IT, surprisingly, were the most challenging team to deal with. And it's because they were thinking we were bringing a new platform. They thought we were doing something to break what was already working. They didn't understand that it actually was BAU. It's just that in the end we went round to people and said, we're not going to use the word robotic. It's a macro on an Excel spreadsheet. And they went, oh, we get it now, it's okay, you can do whatever you want, right? But it's really important because people are being freaked. You know, every time you turn around, someone's telling us about the doom of the world. Agile methodology was really important. So agile is where you stand, and it's a certain type of project methodology. It's not like waterfall where you hand over to IT the requirements, they go away, and 3 months later they come back with something that's different from what you want. Agile is you are very clear with your partners, and every day you stand up and every day people understand what's going on, and that you track the issues, you track the results, and you change your mind weekly. And so what we found was the first 18 or 20 robots, actually probably 7 of those got swapped out because the business needs changed as we did our 2-week sprints. We also put everyone together in a room, and they still had their day jobs, but they had to stay together. And then that visual management everywhere, everyone knew what was required and expected of them and how the results were tracking. And as I said before, we did do constant messaging, but we got people involved to come up with stupid names for the robots, but it was fun. There were whole competitions going, but it was the Jetsons and, you know, any sort of stupid name, Astro, any name you could think of, traditional. The other thing is really talk about WIFMs. What's in it for me? For the people who are impacted, because, you know, from our point of view, we we were about to employ 42 people, and within the first 16 weeks knew we didn't have to do it. We're about a year ahead of our benefits currently. We've paid off it over and over. And so people, instead of seeing it as a negative, as we talked about before, was really positive. And make sure your leadership team are not missing in action. So leadership teams often come out and say, we're really supportive of this, and then you see them at the launch party. So, you know, you really have to have your leaders actively involved at those visual management boards each day. And so, as I said before, the senior leadership team, the only job of the senior leaders is to remove the blockers. And boy, if those of you have brought this in, there are so many blockers bringing in anything to do with the robotics and AI. It's all about championing the investment, carving out the dollars, not letting anyone else get their hands on it, and creating that engagement. But I think it's about the balance of strategic and tactical. Because we had the end-to-end program of the money, we could wave around the annualised costs, but then we could show a specific every 3-week release strategy. And then when you've got something tangible, people tend to leave you alone. The other thing is, don't let this become mainstream until you're really, really good at it in the core area. So my role was to insulate a small focused team to get the best people in there, to make sure that we didn't have a whole lot of consultants that would come in, make us look good and walk away. We had to actually have that capability in-house. So the job for senior leadership is about education, partnership with IT, making sure our strategy and our partners are part of that as well, and then demonstrating benefits quickly. So people are really keen on this until it takes about 4 weeks to release the first one. And so once 4 weeks go, they go on to the next focus and the next problem. And so you've really just got to keep your benefits up there. And you can if someone wants to say to you, well, look, maybe we slow that down, you go, no problems, that's 30 FTE, can I have the budget back, please? And then the conversations change again. It's quite good. And then, as I said before, don't rely on externals. You have to have a balance between internal capability. There's no one out there that really knows what they're doing. I think that was the learning for us. We thought that we'd go out to an industry where people could help us. Actually, we were helping each other. And so what I think is the ability to reach out to other companies and say, we've got this challenge. Everyone was facing the same one. And then finally, find a decent partner. Because, as Paolo said before, there's a lot of companies offering you a lot of vaporware or a lot of ideas, and what you really need is someone to come in and say, oh yeah, okay, we could try that. Yep, we could try that, let's go with it. And so really it helped us. So now I will hand over to my good partner to talk about the rest of how it went.
What an incredible story. I mean, it's like fantastic achievement, what NBN has been able to do in this area. I mean, 30 FTEs per robot, think about that actually, in the last 9 months or so. So we are very, very proud and honored to be part of Shona and her team, to be part of this journey. And we are very, very happy, and we want similar successes in all your businesses as well. So with that note, I'll just start off on few things, share my thoughts around few of the areas, especially around AI. Now, so basically the topic of this discussion was Automation Unchained, and Shona's case study hopefully illustrated, how you can actually unleash the power of automation through some focused effort in identifying the right set of processes and right set of value to go after. Now, what I wanted to also highlight is that when businesses think about automation, when businesses think about this problem, they don't think about an RPA or an AI or anything else. What they think about is like, how much cost can I save? What customer experience improvement I'm going to get, etc. So I know that there's a room here focused on AI and the room next door focused on RPA. But when you actually think about this as a business problem, you really can't separate this out. Okay, this is an RPA program run by an RPA group, and there is an AI program that will be run by an AI group, etc. All of these capabilities will coalesce and will come together, and over a period of time will become part of a same set of capabilities that is required to drive automation in enterprise. And that's what we are seeing more and more in many, many companies. Now, if you look at AI, the chart shown by the previous gentleman, there are like areas such as, consumer technologies like, voice biometrics, voice to text, etc. But then there are areas which are focused on core business processes of a company, which is essentially around decision management, machine learning, all of those, which is applied to the very core processes in a company. And that's where enterprises will get their maximum value for the buck. So let me actually show you this chart. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, not coincidentally, you can see that both the presentations that had so far in this room has started off with an RPA flavor, and then which is kind of migrating to, so what next can be done with that. So, I mean, and that is very obvious, and that is not just accident. And if you actually look at the continuum of automation opportunities an enterprise can look at, it starts with deterministic automation, which is like, what are the basic things that I can do very quickly to automate and get value? And that is where most of them will look at starting, because we don't want to wait for 2-3 years to get value. We want to get value in 2-3 months, and that's what both the case studies have hopefully illustrated to you. And hence, moving from that part on, you get to more and more sophisticated in terms of what else I can do in terms of automating the decisions as well. So the first one is all automating the rules, basic manual steps. But then if you go, there is like, the decision making that is involved. First level of decision making is to actually predict what is going to happen. And the second level of decision making is once you've predicted what is going to happen, how are you going to actually resolve it as well? So that is where the AI kind of things comes in. So when you look at logically from an enterprise point of view and not from a technology point of view, this is the journey that an enterprise will want to take from an automation perspective. And that is where we believe that just focusing on just a particular technology or an RPA or a stream will not help an enterprise. Enterprise will have to focus on this holistically from the whole continuum perspective and not just about a particular technology. So that's one key thing. And you may wonder, so what? I mean, I've just done my RPA and it's paid me fantastic dividends. So I mean, I can be happy with that. I mean, why should I ever move to AI and beyond? Now, I'm going to, we did one research, Infosys commissioned a research, and one of the findings was startling. So we actually queried around large enterprises who are doing large digital transformation, nothing to do with automation, digital transformation. So we asked them a simple question: have you actually leveraged AI in your digital transformation, yes or no? And then the second question was, what was your original business case? And through your transformation, were you able to actually identify more value, more sources of innovation that you did not anticipate when you started, right? So what we found, and it was very revealing to us, that there were like many companies which said they leveraged AI, and there were many companies which said they did not leverage AI. But the companies that leveraged AI and automation, more than 90% of them said during the course of actually leveraging it, they found additional new sources of value, new sources of innovation, which they did not anticipate when they set out to actually start the program. So that is the power of AI. So AI is not about cutting cost, etc. AI is about fundamentally guarding your enterprise against disruption. And that is the message I think I probably want to kind of share with all of you. And I think Shona and others very clearly said, don't start off with the mindset that, we want to cut off the cost, but it's around what is the value that the enterprise is going to get. And the power of AI is to actually guard your enterprise against future disruption. And, a very, very enticing example in this, I think everybody will appreciate, this is the tennis, right? So ATP has been struggling for years to actually improve their fan engagement. So they know that there are a lot of people watch TV, but they don't know how to actually engage with those fans and keep them engaged on an ongoing basis. So what is the mode? So they were struggling with that. So all they had, their biggest asset, was all the data from the courtside, the service and other points from last 25 years. So they had 25 million or 30 million data points, but they didn't know what to do with all that, right? So what they did was, they first tried to use that for fan engagement, in the sense that they used to actually promote some interesting statistics when the match was going on, etc. So this was their objective, just to improve fan engagement. That was the point, and that is why they wanted to do this transformation. We helped them actually, mine the data and provide them a lot of insights, which used to be actually displayed during when the tennis match was going on. But what they also found during this was that that also they are also able to then give a lot of anomalies and data about an individual player, which now becomes an additional source of income for them, because they can go to Roger Federer or a Nadal or somebody and say that, look, you're playing extremely well, but these are your anomalies, these are your points of improvement. And that is extremely big value for them, more than even the fan engagement. And the original business case would be far outweighed by this business case that they will have right now. So that is a good example of cases where, organizations setting out to achieve some simple things, but during the process, actually, reinventing themselves and finding more sources of value. And that is really, if you ask me, the real power of AI. Now, let me show you one more step. And this is basically the whole gamut of things an organization will need to actually unchain automation, automation to the fullest extent possible. Most of the organizations are just focused on one or two aspects of it, which is robotic automation, and rightly so, because that is where the value is going to come immediately. But if you actually look at the gamut of things that you can do to actually completely leverage the full power of AI, these are the things. And as I mentioned before, I'm not referring to certain consumer technologies. This is more around enterprise decision making and how will you leverage AI to speeden up that. Okay, so that is where I think I believe the value is going to lie in the future, and that is where I think most of the organizations, especially the large enterprises, will kind of veer towards. So finally, I just want to kind of give a quick introduction to, and hence what we have done is when we looked at RPA and other things, we have our own RPA platform, which is what Shona's team have leveraged in NBN. But more importantly, what we have done is when we looked at developing this platform, we did not want to be the best of breed RPA player in the world, never, right? So we wanted to actually develop a set of capabilities which our enterprise customers can leverage in a holistic manner. All the capabilities, like the big data, the chatbots, even pattern recognition and things like that, and not just develop a beautiful RPA which anybody can play around themselves, etc. So that has been the objective, and that is what we have put a lot of investments. And to just give you an example, we have eaten our own dog food, right? So Infosys, we were facing enormous pressure from our IT services. It was getting commoditized very, very quickly. And our margins were under pressure, and there is nothing more to differentiate. You can't say, all of these guys, we have people as a differentiator, because these people can move around between the companies, and they do move around. And the global delivery model of doing work from lower cost location is no more a differentiator, because everybody does that now, right? So the idea was to use AI and automation to strongly differentiate ourselves. How do we differentiate ourselves? We automated a lot of low-end operations job, and that gave us good margins in that thing, and used and relieved those people to be used and retrained and used in high margin yielding new services. And in the last 2 years, 45% of our businesses has come from these new services, which means our margin has been protected or improved. And that has actually given us a solid foundation to now grow and differentiate ourselves. And hence, with that note, I just want to, thank all of you and thank the sponsors for this opportunity, and thank Shona for the sponsorship and, the journey that we have had together in NBN. Thank you very much. And any questions, you can take this time.
So thank you very much, Shona and Deepak. We've still got a little bit of time for some questions. So anybody has some questions of either Shona or Deepak? Come on. It was an awesome presentation. Yes. Do we have any microphones or anything? Just here we go. Here it comes. Come on down.
So just for Shona, I guess, in terms of achieving a 1 to 10 or 1 to 30 type relationship for the RPA processes, are they mainly batch run processes that you're automating, or are they on-demand type processes, as in, it's polling for new requests all the time? I guess that's kind of my question.
So we have mixture. So the 1 to 10, 1 to 30. So the 1 to 30 is you saw on the activity-based costing. Some of the things we do are tiny, So some of the things we do are very small, and those are the things that we can do in batches overnight, requests, and then some. But during the day, as you also saw, we have a lot of work coming in through the day, and there's absolutely on demand. It's polling at a regular cycle during the day, and making sure that we fill it through. But the 1 to 10, 1 to 30 is the 1 to 30 in particular. It just comes down to how complex the process is. So the thing that I would say is the toggle on, toggle off function is pretty important, because we built into the robots the fact that, for example, you've got systems A, B, and C relating to this process, and E, F, G. So totally different IT systems going to different areas. And so we can, the robot's smart enough, as we keep saying, if it's a person, then our standards start at high, to be saying, well, when you're doing this process, toggle off any reference to those systems and go over here. So that's where we get the reuse and the capability. I don't know if that really answers your question, but it's, yeah.
We might have time for one more. Then one more just up there. Thank you.
Thank you. You talked about the need to find a good partner, but also the need to develop skills in-house. And I'm just interested in, where the balance is. What are the really value-add activities that you get from a partner? What should you develop in-house? What should you continue to rely on good partners for?
So my answer is that probably out in the market, there's probably no one to do this work, right? I mean, there are not many people. It's probably even 18 months ago, 2 years ago, you probably wouldn't have found really experienced people, but the market is growing fast. So I think the first thing I'd say is you have to find a partner and get a good group of people who have the capability, the resources, and the experience to open up a big box of tools and say, which one do you want? So coming back to the comments that have been made, you start with one strategy and you actually think you're going down this road and you end up over here. So the first thing is you have to have a great partner. But I think for me, it's internally you have to have good leaders, good sponsors, but you also have smart people. So you need to, sorry about that, hang on, have you just lost your job? No. You have to have people who are cornered out to keep thinking and challenging each other. So if you put it into BAU, people get too distracted on all of the other challenges. So what you do is you have people who are fantastic. You start with the attributes you need. Great process people, process engineers. You have people who are fantastic in analytics. You have to have change management, and you have to someone who's just driving that granularity of daily grind to make this thing work. And the reason I say that is we learnt that from probably so when I was in Foxtel, we brought in we had speech analytics, and it was the best thing ever. And we brought in then the ability to take the biometrics and turn it into text and to analyse. And what I learnt was, while we had the functionality, unless you had someone every single day, a week, a month would go by, and you hadn't actually analysed to tweak your IVR and to tweak those other, they sound like old technologies now, but So take that absolute post-implementation focus is the thing I'd focus on the most, and keep your partner there to help you bring in new software. But I think it's about being very deliberate strategically on, we're a year down the track, let's assume everything's going well, what do we want to keep doing? And we need to have these attributes. We need to be rolling out something every 3 weeks. It needs to pay its way back within 6 weeks. It needs, or it needs to make the most amazing customer experience difference, and the customers need to notice. So if you list down all the things you're trying to achieve and go backwards with the capability of the team you need, I think that's where I'd start.
Hey, thank you very much.